The bullet tore through Hyunwoo Park's shoulder before Zara could scream. The second shot shattered his kneecap, dropping the most powerful man in Seoul to the concrete floor of the abandoned Incheon warehouse like a puppet with cut strings. Blood pooled beneath him, dark and spreading, while Ding Beck stood over him with a gun still smoking, his handsome face twisted with the kind of grief that had curdled into pure hatred. "That's for my father," Ding said, his voice eerily calm. He aimed lower, at Hyunwoo's other leg. "And this is for me, son." The gun barked again, and Hyunwoo's body jerked with the impact, a grunt of pain escaping through clenched teeth. His dark eyes found Zara's across the warehouse, and even bleeding out on filthy concrete. Even facing execution, his expression held only one emotion: regret that he couldn't protect her. Zara was bound to a metal chair 15 feet away, 6 months pregnant with their daughter, her wrists zip-tied so tight the plastic cut into her skin. Her younger sister Amina was tied beside her, crying and terrified, having followed Zara into this trap like the protective little sister she'd always been. 20 armed men surrounded them, a mix of Korean gangsters loyal to Daejeon and Nigerian cartel soldiers from the Azakibe organization, the same animals who'd murdered their father 2 years ago. Daejeon raised the gun one final time, pressing the barrel against Hyunwoo's forehead. "And this," he said softly, almost tenderly, "is for my family name. Say goodbye to your husband, Mrs. Park." But before we find out if Hyunwoo survives this execution, let's rewind 6 months to understand how the Bullet Bride and her Mafia King ended up here. If you're already hooked and need to know what happens next, smash that like button right now and drop a comment telling us. Would you sacrifice yourself to save the person you love? And don't forget to let us know where you are watching from. Hit subscribe because this story gets even more intense, and you won't want to miss a single moment of what comes next. 6 months earlier, Zara Okonkwo Park stood in the grand foyer of the Park mansion, her hand resting on the gentle swell of her belly, watching her husband descend the stairs in his perfectly tailored black suit. Hyunwoo had just returned from a council meeting, and the tension radiating from his body told her it hadn't gone well. But when his eyes found hers, when he saw her standing there in afternoon sunlight streaming through the repaired floor-to-ceiling windows, the same windows that had shattered during the attack that nearly killed her, his expression softened in that way it only did for her and Taeyong. "You're supposed to be resting," he said, but his hand was already reaching for hers, pulling her gently against him, careful of her pregnant belly. His other hand cupped her face with a tenderness that still surprised her sometimes. This man who could order executions without blinking but touched her like she was made of something infinitely precious. "I'm pregnant, not broken," Zara reminded him. The same argument they'd been having for 3 months. Dr. Kim said, "I'm perfectly healthy. The baby's perfect. Stop treating me like I'm made of glass. You took 4 bullets 6 months ago. You nearly died." His thumb traced her cheekbone, and his voice dropped to that rough whisper he used when emotions threatened to overwhelm his legendary control. "Forgive me if I'm a little protective of the woman who saved my son and gave me a reason to believe in something beyond power and blood." Zara's heart still skipped when he said things like that. This man who'd married her while she was unconscious, who'd claimed her as his wife to protect her, had become the love she'd never believed possible. Their marriage had started as strategy and morphed into something so consuming that sometimes she couldn't remember what her life had been before Hyunwoo Park looked at her like she was his entire world. "How bad was the meeting?" she asked, because she'd learned to read the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes that meant the council was pushing back again. "Elder Kwan is making moves, suggesting I've gone soft since the wedding. That my attachment to you makes me weak, makes the organization vulnerable." He said it flatly, but she felt him tense. He's gathering support. "Half the council thinks a foreign wife is a liability, especially now that you're carrying my heir." "Not a liability," Zara corrected. "A target." She'd been in this world long enough now to understand the distinction. "They think anyone who wants to hurt you will come through me and the baby." They're not wrong. The admission cost him. But I won't let them use that as an excuse to push you out or diminish your position. "You're Lady Park. You took bullets for my son. You've earned your place here through blood, and they'll respect that or answer to me." A small voice interrupted from the top of the stairs. Is the baby okay?" Taeyong stood there in his school uniform, his backpack still on his shoulders, his young face creased with the worry of a child who'd already lost one mother and lived in constant fear of losing another. "The baby's perfect, sweetheart," Zara assured him, opening her arms as he ran down the stairs and crashed into her carefully, his small hands gentle on her belly. "Your little sister is strong, just like you. I'm teaching her taekwondo as soon as she's born," Taeyong announced seriously, "so she can protect herself. And I'll protect her too. And you. I won't let anyone hurt our family again." Hyunwoo's hand settled on his son's shoulder, pride and pain mixing in his expression. "That's my boy. But protection is my job. Your job is being 7 years old. Almost 8. Taeyong corrected, then looked up at Zara with those earnest dark eyes that melted her every time. "Mrs. Choi says you're planning a real wedding." The kind you can remember. Can I be the ring bearer? I've been practicing walking slowly and not dropping things. Zara laughed, the sound echoing through the foyer that had once been a war zone and was now a home. Of course you can. You're the most important person in this family besides your father and the baby. And you? Taeyoung insisted fiercely. You're the most important because you saved me. You're my real Amma now. I don't care what anyone says. The words hit Zara in the chest, a warmth spreading through her that had nothing to do with pregnancy hormones and everything to do with this child who'd claimed her as his mother so completely. She pulled him close, kissed the top of his head, and met Hyunwoo's eyes over their son's shoulder. His expression was raw, unguarded in a way he never allowed around anyone else. This was why they'd fight, why they'd kill, why they'd die if necessary. This family they'd built from bullets and blood and impossible choices. This love that shouldn't exist, but did, fierce and unshakable, and worth any price. That evening, Zara stood in the massive walk-in closet of the master bedroom she now shared with Hyunwoo, studying the 3 wedding dress designs laid out before her. The wedding planner, a polished Korean woman named Ms. Song, gestured to each dress with practiced enthusiasm. This first design honors traditional Korean hanbok styling with modern elements. The second is pure Western elegance, very sophisticated. And the third blends both cultures, which given your unique background, might be the most meaningful choice. Zara's hand drifted to the fusion dress, crimson silk embroidered with both Korean and Nigerian patterns. It was stunning, a visual representation of what she and Hyunwoo had become, 2 worlds colliding and creating something entirely new. But something about Ms. Song made her instincts prickle. The woman was professional, came with impeccable references, but there was something in her eyes when she looked at Zara. Something that felt like calculation rather than admiration. When did you say you started with the agency? Zara asked casually, her father's training kicking in. Always verify. Always question. Trust your gut when something feels wrong. 3 months ago, Ms. Song answered smoothly. But I've been planning high-profile events for 5 years. I have portfolios if you'd like to see more of my work. 3 months ago, right after the battle at the mansion, right after Chairman Beck and Mi-sun died, Zara filed that information away, made a mental note to have June run a deeper background check. She was probably being paranoid, but paranoia had kept her alive in Lagos, and it would keep her alive here. The fusion dress, Zara decided. But I want to add Nigerian osso oak fabric in gold. My mother wore it at her wedding. Amina is bringing a piece when she arrives next week. Miss Song's pen paused fractionally on her notepad. Your sister is coming from Nigeria? How wonderful. Will she be staying long? As long as she wants, Zara said, watching the woman's face carefully. She's the only family I have left besides Hyunwoo and Taeyoung. Of course. Miss Song smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I'll coordinate with her regarding the fabric. Perhaps she could serve as your maid of honor. After Miss Song left, Zara immediately called June. The security chief answered on the first ring, always vigilant, always ready. Mrs. Park, run a complete background check on Ms. Song, the wedding planner. Something feels off. Zara moved to the window, looking out at the gardens where Taeyoung was playing with Mrs. Choi. I know I'm probably being paranoid. Your instincts saved Taeyoung's life, June interrupted. If something feels wrong, I investigate. Consider it done. That night, Zara lay in Hyunwoo's arms in the massive bed they shared, her back pressed against his chest, his hand splayed protectively over her pregnant belly. This had become their ritual, him holding her and their unborn daughter, feeling the baby kick, talking about the future in whispers like they were sharing secrets the world couldn't hear. She's active tonight, Hyunwoo murmured against Zara's hair, his fingers tracing gentle circles on her skin. Just like her mother. Couldn't stay still if her life depended on it. She knows her father's voice, Zara said softly, covering his hand with hers. She always kicks when you talk to her. Smart girl. Already knows who's in charge. His lips brushed her shoulder, and she felt him smile. What's wrong? You've been tense since the dress fitting. Zara debated not telling him, not adding to the stress he was already under with the council situation. But they'd promised each other honesty, even when it was difficult. Something about the wedding planner bothers me. I asked June to investigate. Hyunwoo went still behind her, his protective instincts immediately triggered. What specifically? Nothing concrete. Just a feeling. The way she looked at me. Questions about Amina. It's probably nothing, but your feelings kept my son alive. If you're uncomfortable, she's gone. I'll hire someone else. His hand tightened on her belly. I won't take chances with you or our daughter. Not after. His voice caught, and she felt the tremor run through him. The memory of nearly losing her still haunted him, manifested in this overwhelming need to protect her from every possible threat. We can't live in fear. Zara turned in his arms to face him, her hands framing his face in the dim light. We defeated Chairman Beck. We survived. We're building something good here, something real. We can't let paranoia destroy that. It's not paranoia if they're really out to get you, Hyunwoo said, but his lips curved slightly. You sound like June. June's smart. We should listen to him more often. She kissed him softly, tasting the whiskey he'd had before bed and something uniquely him. But right now, I don't want to talk about threats or counsels or wedding planners. Right now, I just want you. His eyes darkened with the desire that was always there between them, banked, but never extinguished. You're 6 months pregnant. Dr. Kim said. Dr. Kim said I'm healthy and intimacy is fine. Zara's hand slid down his chest, feeling the muscles tense under her touch. Unless you don't want. He rolled her beneath him with careful precision, caging her with his arms, his body hovering over hers with exquisite control. I always want you. I'll want you when we're 80 and gray. I'll want you in whatever life comes after this one. You're mine, Zara. Mine to protect. Mine to love. Mine to... She pulled him down into a kiss that swallowed whatever he was going to say next, and for a while, there was no danger, no threats, no counsels or enemies. There was just them, this impossible love that had started with bullets and blood and become the most real thing either of them had ever known. The black orchid arrived 3 days later. Zara found it on her breakfast plate, the bloom so dark it looked like it had been cut from midnight itself. No card, no note, just the flower sitting there like a promise of death. Mrs. Choi gasped when she saw it, her elderly face going pale. Ma'am, don't touch it. Black orchids in Korean culture mean death, Zara finished, staring at the flower with her heart pounding. Someone's sending a message. Hyun-woo was in his study with June when she burst in, the orchid wrapped in a napkin. Both men looked up sharply, and the expression that crossed Hyun-woo's face when he saw what she carried made her blood run cold. She'd seen him angry before, seen him coldly furious, but this was different. This was fear. Where did you find this? His voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of absolute command. My breakfast plate. Mrs. Choi didn't see who put it there. Zara set the flower on his desk like it might explode. Someone got past our security. Someone got into our house. Impossible, June said immediately. We have 24-hour surveillance, rotating guards, facial recognition at every entrance. And yet here it is. Hyun-woo stared at the orchid like it was a serpent. Someone with access. Someone we trust. His eyes met Zara's, and she saw the calculation there, the ruthless intelligence that made him the winter dragon. Ms. Song. When was she here last? Yesterday afternoon. Final measurements for the dress. Zara's stomach dropped. You think she... June, bring her in. Now. And I want full background on everyone who's had access to this house in the past month. Staff, vendors, delivery people, everyone. Hyun-woo stood, moved around the desk to Zara, his hands settling on her shoulders. You're not leaving my sight until we know who's behind this. Hyun-woo, I can't live in a cage. You can and you will if it keeps you alive. His jaw was set in that stubborn line she recognized, the one that meant arguing was pointless. Someone wants you dead. Someone wants our baby dead. And I will burn this entire city down before I let them succeed. If you're on the edge of your seat wondering who sent that death threat, hit that like button and drop a comment. Do you think Ms. Song is working for the enemy? Or is someone else even closer betraying them? Subscribe so you don't miss what happens when Hyun-woo interrogates the wedding planner. Because trust me, the Winter Dragon shows no mercy to those who threaten his family. June returned 2 hours later, his expression grim. Ms. Song is gone. Her apartment's been cleared out, no forwarding address. But we found something. He placed a photograph on Hyun-woo's desk. This was taken 3 weeks ago at a cafe in Busan. The photo showed Ms. Song sitting across from a man Zara didn't recognize. Korean, mid-30s, expensive suit, cold eyes. Hyun-woo's face turned to stone when he saw the photograph. Dae-young Baek, Chairman Baek's eldest son. I thought all of Baek's children died in the purge, Zara said, leaning closer to study the man's face. There was something of Mi-sun in his sharp features, something of Chairman Baek in the way he held himself with casual arrogance. Dae-young was in Japan when we took down his father, running the Osaka operations. Hyun-woo's finger traced the edge of the photo, his voice dropping to that dangerous quiet that meant violence was coming. He's the smart one, the patient one. Chairman Baek was going to hand him everything before I refused the marriage alliance with Mi-sun. So he blames you for destroying his family, Zara said, understanding clicking into place. And now he's back for revenge. Not just revenge. June pulled up security footage on his tablet. Our intelligence suggests he's been building alliances. The remnants of his father's organization, some of the smaller families that resented your rise to power, and, he paused, his expression darkening. The Azakai cartel from Lagos. The name hit Zara like a physical blow. The Azakai cartel. The animals who'd murdered her father in front of her family, who'd tried to kill her when she testified, who'd forced her to flee Nigeria and spend 8 months scrubbing floors in Seoul just to survive. No, they don't operate in Korea. They have no reason to. You testified against them 2 years ago. You helped put away 3 of their top lieutenants. Hyun-woo's hand found hers, squeezed tight. Apparently, they have long memories. Dae-young reached out to them with a proposal. He helps them eliminate you. They help him eliminate me. Mutual enemies, mutual destruction. Zara's free hand went to her belly instinctively, protecting the life growing inside her. They're coming for both of us. Korean Mafia and Nigerian cartel. Which means we're facing threats from two fronts, two cultures, two completely different operational styles. Jun's tactical mind was already working through the problem. Dae-young will use traditional Korean approaches, infiltration, turning our people, honor-based challenges. The Azakheim will use brute force, terror tactics, striking where we're weakest. They'll target Zara, Hyunwoo said flatly. She's pregnant, visibly vulnerable, and killing her accomplishes both their goals. Dae-young gets revenge for his family. The Azakheim gets revenge for their imprisoned men. The council meeting that night was brutal. Elder Kwon stood at the head of the table in the private dining room of the restaurant Hyunwoo's organization owned, his aged face grave as he addressed the 5 family heads and their key lieutenants. Zara sat beside Hyunwoo, the only woman in the room, her pregnant belly making her the elephant everyone was too polite to acknowledge directly. The threat is clear, Elder Kwon said, his voice carrying the weight of decades in this world. Dae-young Baek has sworn blood vengeance. He has allied with foreign elements specifically to target our organization. And the reason, his cold eyes shifted to Zara, is sitting at this table. Careful, Hyunwoo's voice cut through the room like a blade. Very careful how you finish that sentence. I'm stating facts, not opinions. Elder Kwon continued, unintimated. Your wife testified against the Azakheim cartel. Your marriage to her, while honorable given her sacrifice for Taeyong, has now brought international criminal elements to our doorstep. Elements that threaten every family here, not just the Parks. What are you suggesting? Hyunwoo's hand rested on the table, deceptively relaxed, but Zara felt the tension coiled in him like a spring about to snap. Send her back to Nigeria. Another family head spoke up, a man named Yoon who controlled the eastern ports. Let the Azakheim have their revenge. Without her here, Dae-young loses half his motivation and all his foreign support. You're suggesting I sacrifice my pregnant wife to appease our enemies. Hyunwoo's voice was so calm it was terrifying. You're suggesting I break every code we claim to live by, protection of family, honor above all, because you're afraid. We're being practical, Elder Kwon shot back. You've made yourself weak, Hyunwoo. Your father would never have let attachment to a woman compromise the entire organization. He understood that power requires sacrifice. My father is dead. Hyunwoo stood slowly, his full height and presence dominating the room. I lead now, and I will not sacrifice the woman who took 4 bullets for my son. I will not abandon my wife and unborn child because old men are frightened of a fight. If that makes me weak in your eyes, then challenge me. Here, now. Let's settle this the traditional way. The room went deadly silent. Challenge meant combat, leadership through strength, old world rules that could end with someone dead on the floor. Elder Kwon's face flushed with anger, but he didn't move. He was 70 years old, no match for Hyunwoo in his prime. I thought not, Hyunwoo said quietly. So here's how this will work. My wife stays. My family stays intact. And anyone who has a problem with that can leave this organization and pray I never see them again. Because Zara is not a liability. She's Lady Park. She has shed blood for this family, and I will shed oceans of blood to protect her. Zara watched the faces around the table, reading the calculation in their eyes. Some looked convinced by Hyunwoo's display of strength. Others looked resentful, already planning their next move. The organization was fracturing, splitting between those loyal to Hyunwoo and those who saw his love for her as weakness. They walked to the car in tense silence, June and 4 guards surrounding them. Hyunwoo helped Zara into the back seat with exquisite care, his hand lingering on her belly, as if reassuring himself she and the baby were still there, still safe. Then he slid in beside her, and the moment the door closed, his control cracked. I'm going to kill them, he said quietly, staring straight ahead. Every single one who suggested sending you away. I'm going to make examples that will echo through this organization for generations. You can't kill your entire council, Zara said reasonably, though part of her, the part that had grown up in her father's world, that understood violence as a language, appreciated the sentiment. That would actually make you weak. It would prove their point. Then what? He turned to her finally, and his eyes were haunted. What do I do when half my organization wants me to throw you to wolves to save themselves? When the people I've protected for years are willing to sacrifice you and our daughter for their own comfort? You remind them why they follow you in the first place, Zara said, taking his hand and placing it firmly on her belly where their daughter was kicking. Not because you're cruel. Not because you're the most brutal. But because you're loyal. Because you keep your word. Because when you make a promise, you keep it no matter the cost. That's why I fell in love with you, Hyunwoo. That's why Taeyong adores you. That's why June would die for you. And that's why the good people in your organization will stand with you even when the vultures circle. He stared at her for a long moment, and then something shifted in his expression. The cold calculation of the winter dragon melted away, leaving just the man, her husband, her partner, the father of her children. How did I get so lucky? He whispered, pulling her close despite her belly, burying his face in her hair. How did I find you? For bullets and a hospital wedding, she reminded him, and felt him laugh despite everything. Very romantic origin story. The most romantic, he agreed, pulling back to cup her face. And it's not over yet. We're going to have that wedding, Zara. The one you deserve. The one you'll remember. I don't care if I have to burn down everyone who threatens that. I don't care if I have to fight Dae-young and the entire Azakaib cartel with my bare hands. You're going to walk down that aisle, and I'm going to marry you properly, and everyone who matters will see that you're mine and I'm yours. You're already mine, Zara said, kissing him softly. Ring or no ring, ceremony or no ceremony. You've been mine since you sat beside my hospital bed for 3 days straight. Since you married me while I was unconscious just to protect me. Since you looked at me like I was worth more than your empire. You are worth more than my empire. He said it like a vow, like a prayer. You're worth more than everything. That night, Zara couldn't sleep. She stood at the window of their bedroom, watching moonlight paint the garden silver, one hand on her belly as the baby did gymnastics inside her. Behind her, Hyun-woo slept fitfully, his body tense even in rest, always ready for threats. She'd worn him out with lovemaking that was desperate and tender by turns, both of them clinging to each other like the world might end tomorrow. Maybe it would. Maybe Dae-young and the Azakaim would find a way through their defenses. Maybe one of the council members would betray them. Maybe this happiness they'd found was too fragile to survive in their violent world. Or maybe she could end it first. Maybe she could be the one to make the sacrifice, remove herself as the target, draw the danger away from Hyun-woo and Tae-young and their unborn daughter. Her father had taught her that sometimes the bravest move was surrendering the battle to win the war. Zara made her decision in the dark silence of that night, watching her husband sleep and knowing that what she was about to do would break his heart. But better a broken heart than a dead family. Better he hate her for leaving than bury her and their daughter because she'd been too weak to act. She spent the next 3 days planning in secret. Used burner phones she bought with cash. Made contact with Dae-young Baek through intermediaries in the underworld network, the shadowy information brokers who dealt with all sides and betrayed none. Her offer was simple, herself in exchange for peace. Her life for Hyun-woo's. Her surrender for the safety of her children. Dae-young's response came through an encrypted message that made her blood run cold. Incheon Port Warehouse, District 7. Come alone. Midnight tomorrow. Bring proof you're actually pregnant. I want to see what I'm destroying. Zara memorized the message and burned the phone. That night, she made love to Hyun-woo with desperate intensity, memorizing every touch, every kiss, every whispered word of love. She traced the scars on his body from old battles, felt the new tension in his muscles from carrying the weight of protecting her. She wanted to remember all of it, every detail, in case this was the last time. Afterwards, as he held her in the darkness, his hand protective on her belly, she whispered, "Promise me something." "Anything," he murmured against her hair, half asleep and sated. "Promise me that no matter what happens, you'll protect Tae-young and our baby. That they'll always come first. Even before me. Even before your pride or your love or your need for revenge. Promise me they'll be safe." She felt him tense behind her, suddenly alert. "Zara, why are you?" "Just promise me," she insisted, turning in his arms to face him in the moonlight. "Please, I need to hear you say it." His eyes searched hers, dark and troubled, seeing too much. But finally he nodded. "I promise. No matter what happens, our children will be protected. They'll be safe. But nothing's going to happen to you. I won't allow it." "You can't control everything," Zara said softly, touching his face one last time. "Not even the winter dragon can stop fate." "Watch me," he said, and kissed her like he could will his protection into her skin, into her bones, into the child they'd created together. Zara left the note on her pillow at dawn, while Hyun-woo was in the shower. Short, direct, no room for argument. "I'm ending this my way. Trust me. I love you. Don't follow me. Protect our children. Z." She slipped out of the mansion through the service entrance, past guards who knew her face and wouldn't question Lady Park leaving early. She'd arranged for a car through contacts Hyun-woo didn't know about, people from her old life in Lagos who owed her father's memory. The drive to Incheon took 2 hours, and with every mile, Zara felt the weight of her choice settling heavier on her shoulders. She was 6 months pregnant, walking into a trap, offering herself to a man who wanted her dead. It was possibly the stupidest thing she'd ever done, but it was also the bravest, and she was her father's daughter. Chief Okonkwo, who'd played deadly games with cartels and mafias and always protected his family first. He'd taught her that sometimes you sacrifice the queen to save the king. The warehouse was exactly what she expected, abandoned, grimy, perfect for murder. Zara walked through the rusted door with her hands visible, no weapons, no backup, just a pregnant woman in a simple dress and comfortable shoes. 20 men waited inside, a mix of Korean gangsters in expensive suits and Nigerian cartel soldiers with cold eyes that recognized her immediately. The chief's daughter, One of them spat in Yoruba, the language of her childhood. You got my brothers locked up. Now you pregnant and soft. Azakai sends his greetings from prison. Tell him I hope he rots there. Zara responded in the same language, her chin high despite the fear crawling up her spine. Tell him my father was worth 10 of him. The man's hand went to his gun, but another voice cut through the tension. Enough. Daeyoung Baek stepped out of the shadows, and Zara understood immediately why Mi's son had been so beautiful. Their father's genes bred elegance. But where Mi's son had been jealous and passionate, Daeyoung was cold calculation in human form. His expensive suit was perfectly tailored, his hair precisely styled, everything about him screaming control except his eyes. His eyes held the kind of grief that had metastasized into madness. Mrs. Park, he said with mock courtesy, gesturing to a metal chair. Please sit. You must be tired. 6 months pregnant and walking into a trap. That takes either courage or stupidity. I haven't decided which. Does it matter? Zara sat carefully, her hands protective on her belly. I'm here. That's what you wanted. Me for him. My life for peace. Let my family go. Daeyoung circled her slowly, studying her like she was a puzzle to solve. You really love him, don't you? The man who destroyed my family. The winter dragon who killed my father and drove my sister to her death. You actually love that monster. He's not a monster, Zara said quietly. He's a father. A husband. A man trying to protect what's his in a world that respects only strength. Just like your father was. Don't you dare compare them. Daeyoung's composure cracked for just a moment, fury blazing in his eyes before he locked it down. My father was building a legacy. Hyunwoo destroyed it because he was too arrogant to accept a marriage alliance. Too proud to see that joining our families would have made us unstoppable. Your father tried to kill a 6-year-old boy, Zara reminded him. That's why we fought back. That's why your family fell. Not pride. Not arrogance. Self-defense. Lies. Daeyoung's hand flashed out, striking her across the face hard enough to split her lip. The taste of copper flooded her mouth. My father would never order a hit on a child. That was a setup. A false flag to justify the purge. And you, he grabbed her chin roughly, forcing her to meet his eyes. You're just a pawn who doesn't even know the game she's in. Before Zara could respond, commotion erupted outside, shouting in Korean. Gunfire. The warehouse doors burst open and Amina stumbled in, held by 2 of Dame's men, her face bruised and terrified. Zara, her little sister's voice cracked with fear. I'm sorry I followed you, I thought. You thought you could save your sister. Daeyoung finished, releasing Zara to study Amina with interest. How touching. 2 Okonkwo sisters. The Azakaim will be pleased, 2 for the price of 1. He turned to his men. Tie them both up. I want them to watch what comes next. As rough hands zip-tied Zara's wrists to the chair, her mind raced through options. She'd counted 20 men when she arrived. Amina's presence changed everything. She couldn't just sacrifice herself anymore, couldn't gamble with her sister's life. And Hyunwoo would have found her note by now, would be tearing the city apart looking for her. She just had to stay alive long enough for him to find them. Have you ever made a decision that you knew was right, but also knew would destroy the person you love? Drop a comment telling us what you would have done in Zara's place. And hit that subscribe button because you need to see what happens when Hyunwoo discovers she's gone. The Winter Dragon Unleashed is something you don't want to miss. Hyunwoo found the note at 7:15 a.m. He'd come out of the shower expecting to find Zara still in bed, maybe reading or playing on her phone like she usually did while waiting for him. Instead, he found empty sheets, her pillow cold, and a small piece of paper that made his blood turn to ice. June! His roar echoed through the mansion. June, get in here now. The security chief burst through the door 3 minutes later, weapon drawn, expecting an attack. What he found was worse. Hyunwoo standing at the window in his robe, the note crumpled in his fist, his entire body vibrating with barely controlled rage and terror. She's gone, Hyunwoo said, his voice deadly calm in that way that meant someone was going to die screaming. My pregnant wife walked out of this mansion past all your security, all your guards, all your fucking surveillance, and she's gone. June paled. Sir, that's impossible. We have. I don't care what you have. Hyunwoo spun, and the expression on his face made June take an involuntary step back. She's not in this house. She left me a goodbye note. Which means she's walking into a trap, probably trying to sacrifice herself to protect us. And every second we waste is a second closer to her dying. So you're going to find her. Now. I don't care if you have to burn down every building in Seoul. I don't care if you have to torture every information broker in the city. You find my wife. Yes, sir. June was already on his phone, mobilizing every resource. Should I alert the council? Screw the council, Hyunwoo said flatly. Half of them probably want her dead anyway. We do this with our people. Loyalists only. In June, Hyunwoo's voice dropped to something raw and desperate. Find her alive. Please. I can't. His voice broke, and he turned away, shoulders rigid with the effort of maintaining control. I can't lose her. Not after everything. Not when she's carrying our daughter. June had served the Park family for 15 years. He'd seen Hyunwoo order executions without flinching, watched him survive assassination attempts with cold calculation, witnessed him build an empire on blood and steel. But he'd never seen his boss break until now. Never seen the Winter Dragon's armor crack to reveal the terrified husband underneath. "We'll find her, sir," June promised. "I swear on my life, we'll bring her home." It took 45 minutes of brutal interrogation of information brokers before they got the lead. A warehouse in Incheon. Daeyoung-baek. The Azakive cartel. June relayed the information to Hyunwoo in the armored vehicle racing toward the port, watching his boss check his weapon with mechanical precision, his face completely blank. "Sir, it's obviously a trap. Daeyoung wants you to come alone. He wants you emotional and reckless. Then he'll get what he wants," Hyunwoo said quietly, sliding a fresh magazine into his gun. "I'm going in. Alone. Unarmed if necessary. That's suicide. That's love." Hyunwoo finally looked up, and his eyes held a kind of clarity that was almost peaceful. She walked into that warehouse knowing she'd probably die, knowing I'd be devastated, knowing she was sacrificing herself to protect our family. She did that because she loves me more than she loves her own life. So yes, I'm walking in there. Because that's what you do for the person who means more than breathing. You walk into hell if you have to. Then at least let me position men outside. If things go wrong. When things go wrong, Hyunwoo corrected, you storm in and save my family. Zara and Amina get out alive. That's the mission. That's the only thing that matters. If I die making that happen, you take care of Taeyoung and the baby. You make sure they know their father loved them. Promise me, June. June's jaw worked, emotions he rarely showed flickering across his face. I promise. But you're not dying today, sir. Neither of you are. We'll see, Hyunwoo said, and climbed out of the vehicle. The warehouse loomed in the industrial darkness, rusted and ominous. Hyunwoo approached with his hands raised, no visible weapons, just a man in expensive clothes walking toward his probable death. The guards at the entrance searched him roughly, found nothing, and shoved him inside. What he saw made his blood freeze and boil simultaneously. Zara zip-tied to a metal chair, her lips split and bleeding, 6 months pregnant with his daughter and looking at him with a mixture of love and fury. Beside her, Amina was similarly bound, crying quietly. And standing between them and freedom were 20 armed men and Daeyoung-baek, who smiled when he saw Hyunwoo enter. "The Winter Dragon," Daeyoung said with mock reverence. "Walking into my trap unarmed, all for a woman. My father was right about you. Love makes men weak. Love makes men dangerous," Hyunwoo corrected, his eyes never leaving Zara's face. "I'm sorry," he mouthed to her silently. "Don't be," she mouthed back, tears streaming down her face. "I love you." "How touching," Daeyoung sneered. "Let's see how much you love each other when I start taking pieces. Name your price, Hyunwoo. What will you give me to let them go? Your empire? Your life? Your dignity? Beg me. Get on your knees and beg like a dog, and maybe, I'll let one of them live." "There is no price," Hyunwoo said quietly, his gaze finally shifting to Daeyoung. "There's no amount of money, no piece of territory, no concession I won't make. Tell me what you want. Truly want. Not this revenge theater. What will actually satisfy the grief of losing your family?" The question seemed to catch Daeyoung off guard. His expression flickered. Pain, rage, loss, all fighting for dominance. "I want my father back," he said, and for a moment he sounded like a lost child. "I want me son back. I want the future we were supposed to have. Can you give me that?" "No," Hyunwoo admitted. "But I can give you the truth. Your father ordered the hit on my son. Not as a power play, as a test. He wanted to see if I was strong enough to protect what was mine before he handed you me son and merged our families. It was his way. Brutal. Unforgiving. And it backfired because Zara threw herself in front of those bullets. Because a Nigerian Maid loved my son more than your father valued his life. That's why everything fell apart. Not because of me. Because your father miscalculated." "Liar." Daeyoung's composure shattered. He pulled his gun, aimed it at Hyunwoo. "My father would never. Your father was testing me." Hyunwoo continued relentlessly. "Ask Elder Kwon. Ask any of the old guard who knew how Chairman Beck operated. He believed in trial by fire. He believed weakness should be punished. And he believed I needed to prove myself worthy of his daughter before he gave her to me. But I wasn't weak. And Zara proved that by surviving what should have killed her." Daeyoung's hand trembled on the gun. "You're just trying to." "I'm telling you the truth because I understand your pain," Hyunwoo said, and his voice gentled. "I understand losing family. I understand rage that keeps you awake at night. But killing my pregnant wife won't bring them back. Murdering an innocent woman and her sister won't heal your grief. It'll just create more ghosts to haunt you." For a long moment, silence stretched taut in the warehouse. Then Daeyoung steadied his hand, and his face went cold again. "Nice try, but I don't want healing. I want blood." He aimed at Hyunwoo's shoulder and fired. The impact spun Hyunwoo sideways, blood spraying from the wound. He grunted but stayed on his feet, his teeth gritted against the pain. Zara screamed, fighting against her restraints with desperate strength that made the zip ties cut into her wrists until they bled. "That's for my father," Dae-young said calmly, taking aim at Hyun-woo's leg. The second shot shattered his kneecap, and this time Hyun-woo went down, his face white with agony, but his eyes still fixed on Zara. "And that's for me, son." Dae-young advanced slowly, like a predator savoring the kill. "Now comes the best part. I'm going to kill you while your wife watches. Then I'm going to cut that baby out of her and send it to your son in pieces. Then I'll kill her. Then the sister. And your empire will crumble without the winter dragon to hold it together." Hyun-woo tried to push himself up, blood pooling beneath him, his leg useless. "Leave them alone. Please. Take me. Just them go." Begging now, Dae-young smiled. "That's what I wanted to hear." The mighty winter dragon reduced to pleading for his woman's life. "My father would have loved this." He pressed the gun to Hyun-woo's forehead. "Say goodbye to your husband, Mrs. Park." But before he could pull the trigger, Zara screamed, not in fear, in pain. Her body convulsed, her face contorting, and a gush of fluid stained the concrete beneath her chair. "The baby," she gasped, her voice breaking. "Something's wrong. The baby's coming." Everything stopped. Dae-young stepped back, confusion replacing his murderous certainty. The Nigerian soldiers exchanged uncertain glances. Killing a pregnant woman in combat was one thing, but watching her miscarry in agony was something else. Even monsters had lines they hesitated to cross. "It's too early," Amina cried, straining against her bonds toward her sister. "She's only 6 months. The baby can't, Zara." Zara's scream cut through the warehouse, primal and agonized. But Hyun-woo saw it, the quick flash of calculation in her eyes before she squeezed them shut, the way her hands had been slowly working the zip ties. She was faking, buying time, using the one thing that might make even killers hesitate, a mother in distress. His brilliant, brave, absolutely insane wife was creating a distraction. Hyun-woo moved despite his shattered leg, throwing himself toward the nearest guard while everyone's attention was on Zara. He grabbed the man's gun, fired twice, 3 times. Dae-young dove for cover. The warehouse erupted in chaos. And through it all, Zara wrenched her hands free from the loosened restraints and grabbed the metal chair leg, swinging it like a weapon at the guard nearest Amina. "You don't touch my husband," she roared, 6 months pregnant and fighting like a demon, adrenaline and protective fury making her deadly despite her condition. Outside, June heard the gunfire and gave the order. 50 men stormed the warehouse. "Are you breathing? Because we're barely breathing after that." Smash that like button if your heart is pounding right now, and comment below. Did you see that fake labor distraction coming, or did Zara surprise you? Subscribe right now because this battle is about to get even more intense, and you won't believe what happens when the winter dragon fights wounded to protect his family. The warehouse became a war zone. Bullets ricocheted off metal beams. Men screamed and died. Smoke filled the air from weapons, and the Fire Dae-young's men had started to cover their retreat. Through it all, Hyun-woo fought with single-minded purpose. Get to Zara, get her out, nothing else matters. He couldn't walk on his shattered leg, so he crawled, dragged himself through blood and spent brass casings, his suit jacket soaked red, his vision starting to tunnel from blood loss. But he could see her ahead, see Zara fighting off attackers with Amina beside her, both women fierce and terrified. A Nigerian soldier aimed at Zara's back, his finger tightening on the trigger. Hyun-woo raised his stolen gun with a trembling hand, fired. The shot went wide. His vision was blurring, his hands weak from blood loss. The soldier turned toward him, saw an easier target, a dying man bleeding out on concrete. Then June was there, materializing like an avenging angel, his weapon speaking in controlled bursts that dropped 3 men in as many seconds. "Get to Mrs. Park," he shouted to his team. "Secure the women. Move." Zara saw Hyun-woo then, saw him collapsed on the ground 20 feet away, bleeding from multiple wounds but still trying to reach her. Their eyes met across the chaos, and something passed between them. Love, desperation, the wordless communication of 2 people who'd become one soul in 2 bodies. She started toward him, but a massive explosion rocked the warehouse. Dae-young had detonated charges hidden in the support beams. The building groaned, metal shrieking as it began to collapse. Fire spread along oil-soaked wood pallets, turning the space into an inferno. "We need to evacuate now." June grabbed Zara's arm, trying to pull her toward the exit. "Mrs. Park, we have to go." "Not without him." Zara wrenched free, stumbling toward Hyun-woo. She fell to her knees beside him, her hands frantically assessing his wounds. "You stupid, stupid man. You were supposed to stay away. You were supposed to be safe." "Safe is wherever you are," Hyun-woo managed, his hand coming up to touch her face with blood-stained fingers. "I made you a promise. Remember? Sickness and health. Better or worse. I meant every word. You're not dying on me," Zara said fiercely, trying to lift him despite her pregnant belly. "I didn't take 4 bullets just for you to bleed out in a warehouse. Get up. Now." "Can't," he admitted, his leg a mangled mess. "But you can run." Take Amina. Get our daughter somewhere safe. June will protect you. I'm not leaving you. Zara's voice broke. Do you hear me? I'm not leaving you to burn. We survive together or we die together. Those are the only options. Above them, another beam collapsed, missing them by inches. The heat was becoming unbearable. Smoke choked the air. June appeared with two of his men, and together they lifted Hyunwoo between them despite his protests. Zara clutched Amina's hand, and they ran. The warehouse exit seemed impossibly far. Every step was agony. Hyunwoo's weight on his ruined leg, Zara's pregnant body straining. Amina limping from injuries Zara had only just noticed. Behind them, the building was collapsing, fire consuming everything, black smoke billowing into the night sky. They burst through the exit just as the main structure gave way with a thunderous crash. The explosion threw them forward, and Zara felt herself falling, tried to protect her belly, hit the ground hard enough to drive the breath from her lungs. For a moment, there was only ringing silence and the taste of ash. Then Hyunwoo's voice, hoarse and desperate, Zara, answer me. The baby. I'm okay, she gasped, trying to push herself up. We're okay, I think. Amina, here. Her sister coughed from a few feet away. Alive. Barely. Are you insane? Fake going into labor? Fighting while pregnant? What were you thinking? That I'd rather die fighting than watch them execute my husband, Zara said, finally managing to sit up. Around them, June's men were securing the perimeter, calling for medical support, hunting for any surviving enemies. The warehouse was a smoking ruin. Did Daeyoung escape? Unknown, June reported, helping Hyunwoo sit against a shipping container. We've accounted for 18 bodies. 2 of his men are missing, possibly dead in the collapse. He could be either. He's alive, Hyunwoo said with grim certainty, his hand pressed to his bleeding shoulder. Men like him don't die that easily. He'll run, regroup, come back stronger. This isn't over. It is for tonight, Zara said firmly, moving to sit beside him despite her own injuries. She pressed her hands over his wounds, trying to slow the bleeding, her face tight with concentration. You're going to the hospital. We both are. And then we're going to figure out how to end this properly. But right now, you're bleeding out, and I'm not losing you. Not after everything. Hyunwoo's laugh was pained, but genuine. You fake went into labor, while tied to a chair, in a room full of killers. That's the most terrifying thing you've ever done, and you've done some terrifying things. I learned from the best, Zara said, kissing him carefully despite the blood and ash covering both of them. My father always said, use what they least expect. No one expects a pregnant woman to be a threat. You're the biggest threat in any room, Hyunwoo murmured, his hand finding her belly. Is she really okay? The baby. Kicking like she wants to fight her way out early, Zara assured him, guiding his hand to where their daughter was indeed moving vigorously. She's her father's child. Stubborn and impossible to kill. The ambulances arrived with sirens screaming. Paramedics swarmed them, but Zara refused to be separated from Hyunwoo. She rode in the ambulance with him, holding his hand while they worked on his wounds, his blood pressure dropping dangerously low. Amina rode in the second ambulance, being treated for minor injuries and shock. Stay with me, Zara whispered, watching Hyunwoo's eyes flutter closed. You stay with me right now. You don't get to be heroic and then die. That's not how this works. Bossy, he managed, but his lips curved slightly. Love when you're bossy. I'm about to get Bozier. When you recover, we're having a serious conversation about you walking into traps unarmed. About you getting shot twice. About you, her voice cracked. About you scaring me like that. I thought I was going to watch you die. Same, his hand squeezed hers weakly. When I found your note. When I thought you'd sacrifice yourself. Zara, don't ever. I know, she said, tears finally spilling over. I know. It was stupid, but I thought if I removed myself as the target, you and the children would be safe. I thought. You thought wrong, Hyunwoo said, his eyes opening to fix on hers with fierce intensity despite his weakness. We're a unit. You, me, Taeyoung, this baby. We don't sacrifice each other. We fight together. Promise me. No more heroic sacrifices. No more walking into traps alone. Only if you promise the same thing, Zara countered. You walked into that warehouse knowing you'd probably die. That's not protection. That's suicide. It's love, Hyunwoo corrected. There's a difference. No, there isn't, Zara said fiercely. Love means staying alive. Love means fighting smart, not charging in like. She stopped as a sudden sharp pain tore through her abdomen. Not the fake contractions from before, but something real and terrifying. Oh no. What? Hyunwoo tried to sit up, ignoring the paramedics trying to keep him down. Zara, what's wrong? The baby, she gasped, doubling over as another contraction hit. This one unmistakably real. It's not fake this time. She's coming. Hyunwoo, the baby's actually coming. The paramedic checked quickly, his face going pale. She's right. She's in active labor. We need to get to the hospital now. Driver, step on it. It's too early, Zara said, panic rising in her voice. She's only 6 months. She's too small. She's not ready. She's your daughter, Hyunwoo said, gripping her hand despite his own critical condition, despite the fact that he was still bleeding, despite everything. Which means she's a fighter. She'll make it. You both will. Look at me, Zara. Look at me. She met his eyes, saw the absolute certainty there, the refusal to accept any outcome where he lost either of them. We just survived bullets and explosions and a collapsing building, he continued. We survived Daeyoung and the Azekyle and 20 armed men. We're not losing our daughter to something as mundane as early labor. She's going to be fine. You're going to be fine. I'm ordering you both to survive. You can't order biology around, Zara said. But she was laughing through tears and pain, because only Hyunwoo would try to command their daughter to be born healthy through sheer force of will. Watch me, he said, and pressed his bloodstained hand to her belly. Listen to me, little one. Your Amma and I have been through too much to lose you now. So you hold on. You fight. You're a park. We don't give up. The contraction passed, and Zara sagged against the gurney, exhausted beyond measure. If we both survive this night, I'm never leaving the house again. I'm going to become one of those people who bubble wraps themselves and lives in a fortress. If we both survive this night, I'm marrying you again, Hyunwoo said. Properly. With witnesses who aren't in comas. With you conscious and able to say your vows. With our daughter as a witness. She's not even born yet and you're already volunteering her for wedding party duty, Zara said. Another contraction building. The hospital erupted into controlled chaos when they arrived. Hyunwoo was rushed to one operating room for emergency surgery on his gunshot wounds, while Zara was taken to another for an emergency C-section. They tried to separate them at the entrance, but Zara refused to let go of his hand until they physically had to pry her fingers away. I love you, she called as they wheeled him in the opposite direction. You stay alive. That's an order. Yes, ma'am, he managed, his voice weak, but his eyes still locked on hers until the doors closed between them. In the surgical suite, Zara lay on the table while doctors worked frantically to prepare for the premature delivery. Her body was going into shock from the stress, the baby was in distress, and everything that could go wrong was teetering on the edge of catastrophe. But through the fear, through the pain, she kept thinking about Hyunwoo's face when he'd walked into that warehouse. The way he'd looked at her like she was his whole world. The way he'd taken those bullets without flinching because protecting her was more important than his own life. Mrs. Park, we need you to stay with us. Dr. Kim's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. The baby's heart rate is dropping. We need to get her out now. Do it, Zara said, and prayed to gods she wasn't sure she believed in anymore. Prayed to her father's memory. Prayed to whatever force had kept her alive when 4 bullets should have killed her. Please let my baby live. Please. The surgery was a blur of pain and pressure and the terrifying silence where a baby's cry should be. Zara's heart stopped when they pulled her daughter out, and she didn't hear anything. Didn't hear that first wail that meant life and breath and survival. Is she? Zara couldn't finish the question, terror choking her words. Then, finally, blessedly, a thin cry pierced the air. Weak, barely there, but alive. Her daughter was alive. She's breathing on her own, Dr. Kim said, relief evident in his voice. Small, very small, but breathing. We need to get her to the NICU immediately, but Mrs. Park, your daughter is a fighter. They showed her the baby for just a moment. A tiny, wrinkled thing, impossibly small, with a shock of black hair and lungs that protested being born too early with remarkable vigor. Then she was whisked away, and Zara was left staring at the ceiling, tears streaming down her temples, her body empty and aching and terrified. My husband, she managed. Hyunwoo Park. Is he still in surgery? A nurse told her gently. It's been 3 hours. The damage was extensive, but Dr. Choi is the best trauma surgeon in Seoul. Try to rest, Mrs. Park. Your body needs to heal. Rest. As if she could rest not knowing if Hyunwoo would survive. As if she could sleep with her premature daughter fighting for life in an incubator somewhere. As if the world hadn't just exploded and reformed into something sharp-edged and terrifying. In the waiting room, Amina sat with Mrs. Choi and Tae-young. The boy had been brought to the hospital the moment they arrived, and now he sat between the 2 women, his small face pale and streaked with tears. When June approached with an update, all 3 looked up with desperate hope. Mrs. Park delivered the baby, June said, his usually stoic face softening slightly. A girl. Premature, but stable. She's in the NICU. And father? Tae-young's voice was so small, so frightened. Is my father dead? Still in surgery, June said, crouching down to the boy's level. But your father is the strongest man I know. He's survived worse than this. He got shot because of Amma, Tae-young said, and there was an edge to his voice that made everyone freeze. He got shot because she left. Because she tried to save us and made everything worse. Tae-young, Mrs. Choi started, but the boy wrenched away from her. It's true. If she'd just stayed here where it was safe, father wouldn't have gone to that warehouse. He wouldn't be dying right now, and my baby sister wouldn't be in danger. His voice cracked. I love Amma, but father can't die. He can't. Amina stood slowly, moving to kneel in front of her nephew, because that's what he was now, family by blood and love and shared trauma. Your father went to that warehouse because he loves your mother more than he loves his own life. And your mother went there first because she loves all of you more than she loves herself. That's what family does. We make stupid, brave, impossible choices to protect each other. And sometimes those choices hurt. Sometimes people we love get hurt. But the alternative, letting them face danger alone, that's worse. But what if he dies? Taeyoung whispered. And he looked so much younger than his almost 8 years, just a scared child who'd already lost one parent and couldn't bear to lose another. Then we survive, Amina said firmly. We take care of your mother and your sister. We honor his memory by being strong. But Taeyoung, he's not going to die. Your father is too stubborn, and your mother will literally will him back to life through sheer force of personality. I've known Zara my whole life, and she doesn't let people she loves die. Trust me. 5 hours after he'd been wheeled into surgery, Hyunwoo Park emerged alive. Barely. Dr. Choi looked exhausted when he spoke to the family, his surgical scrubs still spattered with blood. The shoulder wound was clean, through and through, missed major arteries. The knee was worse. We had to reconstruct the joint with pins and plates. He'll need extensive physical therapy, might walk with a limp permanently. But he'll walk. He'll live. Mr. Park is unconscious right now, but stable. The relief was palpable, a physical weight lifting. Taeyoung started crying in earnest, the kind of deep sobs that come after holding fear inside for too long. Mrs. Choi pulled him close, her own eyes wet. Jun's shoulders sagged like someone had cut the strings holding him upright. Can we see him? Amina asked. And can someone tell Zara? She needs to know. Mrs. Park is being moved to a private recovery room now. We'll arrange for them to be in adjacent rooms so they can see each other as soon as they're both conscious. Dr. Choi managed a tired smile. Your family is remarkably resilient. I'll give you that. Most people don't survive what you've been through tonight. We're Parks, Taeyoung said, wiping his face with the back of his hand, trying to be brave. We survive everything. Zara awoke slowly, her body aching in new and terrible ways, her mind foggy from drugs and exhaustion. The first thing she saw was Hyunwoo's face on the pillow beside hers. They'd pushed 2 hospital beds together, and he was unconscious but breathing, his chest rising and falling with reassuring regularity. Someone, probably Mrs. Choi, had cleaned the blood off his face. His shoulder was bandaged heavily, his leg in a complicated brace, for lines running into both arms. But he was alive. He was here. They'd both survived. Zara's hand found his carefully, threading their fingers together. The simple touch grounded her, reminded her that this was real, that they'd made it through another impossible night. A soft coo from across the room made her turn her head. There, in a specialized NICU incubator on wheels, was her daughter. So tiny she looked more like a doll than a real baby, covered in monitoring equipment, but alive and moving weakly under the warming lights. She's beautiful, a voice said softly. Taeyoung stood in the doorway, Mrs. Choi behind him. Can I come in? Of course, Zara said, her voice hoarse. Come meet your sister. Taeyoung approached slowly, his eyes huge as he stared at the baby. She's so small. Is she going to be okay? The doctors think so, Zara said, hoping it was true. She's early, so she needs help breathing and eating. But she's strong. She's fighting. Like you, Taeyoung said, then looked at Zara with an expression far too old for his face. I'm sorry I was angry. Aunt Amina explained. You and father were both trying to protect each other. That's what love is. That's exactly what love is, Zara agreed, holding out her free hand to him. He took it, squeezing tight. And you know what else love is? It's you being brave enough to forgive me, even though you were scared. It's you standing by your sister, even though you barely know her yet. That's the kind of man your father is raising you to be. If your heart can handle any more emotion, hit that like button right now. Comment and tell us. What should they name the baby? And subscribe because you need to see what happens when Hyunwoo wakes up and meets his daughter for the first time. Trust me, you don't want to miss that moment. Hyunwoo woke to the sound of a baby fussing. For a moment, disoriented by pain medication and blood loss, he thought he was dreaming. Then his eyes focused on the incubator beside his bed, on the impossibly tiny creature inside who was making impressively loud noises for something so small. She has your lungs. Zara's voice came from beside him, and he turned his head to find her watching him with exhausted eyes and a soft smile. Been complaining since she got here. Very opinionated already. You're alive, Hyunwoo said, his voice rough from intubation. His hand tightened on hers like he needed physical proof she was real. You're both alive. So are you, despite your best efforts to bleed out heroically, Zara said, but her tone was gentle. The doctors said you'll have a limp. Might need a cane. Worth it, he said simply, his eyes moving to the incubator. Can I? Is she okay to touch? A nurse helped adjust his bed so he could reach through the incubator's porthole, his large hand dwarfing his daughter's entire body. When his finger brushed her tiny palm, She gripped it with surprising strength, her eyes squeezing shut as she made another protesting sound. She knows you, Zara whispered, watching his face transform with wonder and love so raw it hurt to witness. She's been listening to your voice for 6 months. She knows her father. Hi, little one, Hyun-woo said softly, his voice breaking. I'm sorry your first day was so dramatic. Your Amma and I, we tend toward the dramatic. You're going to have to get used to that. His finger stroked her impossibly small hand. But I promise you, every dramatic thing we do from now on will be to protect you. To keep you safe. To give you a life where you never have to fight for survival like we did. What should we name her? Zara asked, leaning her head against his shoulder carefully. We never decided. Hyun-woo was quiet for a long moment, watching their daughter struggle and fight and live despite being born too early into a world of violence. Ji-woo, he said finally. It means wisdom and grace. Because she's going to need both to survive having us as parents. Ji-woo, Zara repeated, tasting the name. Ji-woo Park. It's perfect. Over the next 6 weeks, they learned what it meant to be a family forged in trauma. Hyun-woo underwent painful physical therapy, his shattered knee healing slowly, his pride taking hits every time he needed a cane or couldn't move as fast as he once did. Zara recovered from the emergency C-section and the aftermath of the warehouse battle, her body healing but her mind plagued by nightmares of almost losing everything. Ji-woo fought her own battles in the NICU, her tiny body struggling to breathe, to eat, to do all the things that full-term babies managed effortlessly. But she was a Park, stubborn and strong, and slowly, incrementally, she grew stronger. Tae-young was the surprise hero. He appointed himself his sister's personal guardian, reading to her through the incubator, telling her stories about their family, promising to teach her taekwondo as soon as she was big enough. His devotion was absolute, and it healed something in Zara's heart to watch her son, because he was her son now in every way that mattered, love his sisters so fiercely. But underneath the healing, underneath the family moments and the slow recovery, danger still lurked. Dae-young-baek had vanished after the warehouse fire. No body had been found, which meant he was alive and planning his next move. The Azakayo cartel had gone quiet, but Jun's intelligence suggested they were regrouping, and the council, seeing Hyun-woo weakened and recovering, was circling like vultures. Elder Kwon made his move on a Tuesday morning. He called an emergency council meeting while Hyun-woo was still using a cane, still visibly wounded, still not back to full strength. The message was clear. Challenge the wounded dragon while he can't fight back. Hyun-woo arrived at the meeting with Zara at his side. She was dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, her hair styled elegantly, every inch the Lady Park she'd become. The council members stared. Women didn't attend these meetings. Tradition dictated they stay home. But Hyun-woo simply pulled out her chair and stood behind it, his hand on her shoulder. Gentlemen, he said, his voice carrying the old authority despite his injuries. Let's begin. You shouldn't be here, Elder Kwon said. But he was looking at Zara, not Hyun-woo. This is council business. Family matters are discussed among the heads only. My wife is family, Hyun-woo said simply. Everything discussed here affects her and our children. She stays. Your wife is a liability. Another head spoke up, Mr. Yoon from the Eastern Ports. The attack that nearly killed you both, the warehouse fire, your injuries, all of it stems from your attachment to her. Your father would be ashamed. My father, Hyun-woo said, his voice dropping to something dangerous, is dead. I lead now. And I'm done pretending that strength means sacrificing the people we love. That's not strength. That's cowardice dressed up in tradition. You can barely walk. Elder Kwon gestured to the cane leaning against Hyun-woo's chair. You're wounded, weakened, and vulnerable. The organization needs strong leadership, not a man compromised by sentiment. Is that a challenge? Hyun-woo asked mildly. Because if you're questioning my leadership, tradition says we settle this the old way. You and me. Right here. Right now. Elder Kwon's face flushed. You're injured. That would be unfair. Hyun-woo smiled without humor. I walked into a warehouse full of armed men to save my pregnant wife. I took 2 bullets and kept fighting. I crawled across concrete with a shattered leg to reach her. You think a cane makes me weak? Elder Kwon, I'm more dangerous wounded than you've ever been healthy. The room went silent. Then Zara stood, and every eye turned to her. With respect, Elder Kwon, you're wrong about me. I'm not a liability. I'm an asset. I speak 4 languages, including Yoruba and Igbo, which gives us access to West African networks you've never been able to penetrate. I have contacts in Lagos who owe my father's memory debts they'd be happy to transfer to me. I took 4 bullets for Tae-young, which means I've shed blood for this family, more than some people at this table can claim. She paused, letting that sink in, then continued. But more than that, I'm the reason Hyun-woo is more effective now than he's ever been. Because I gave him something to protect beyond power and territory. I gave him family. Real family. The kind worth dying for. And that makes him more dangerous, not less. Because a man with nothing to lose is reckless. But a man protecting his family? That man will burn the world down and rebuild it from ash. That man is unstoppable. The silence stretched longer. Finally, Mr. Yoon cleared his throat. She has a point. The intelligence network she's built through her charity work has been unexpectedly valuable. And the West African contacts could open new shipping routes, another head admitted reluctantly. Elder Kwan looked like he'd swallowed glass, but he nodded stiffly. Perhaps I was premature in my assessment. Mrs. Park has proven her value. The admission clearly cost him, but he made it. However, the threat from Dae Young Baek remains, as does the Azakayo cartel. Until they're eliminated, this family, this organization, is vulnerable. Then we eliminate them, Hyun-woo said simply. We stop reacting and start hunting. June, what do we know? June stepped forward with his tablet, pulling up intelligence reports. Dae Young survived the warehouse fire. He's gone to ground, but our sources indicate he's in Busan, rebuilding his network. The Azakayo cartel pulled their men back to Nigeria after losing half their team in Incheon. But they're not done. We intercepted communications suggesting they're planning something bigger. Something that requires patience. Define bigger, Zara said, her stomach sinking. Unknown. But the phrase they keep using is the mother's secret. They seem to think there's information about Hyun-woo's family that will destroy everything. June's expression was troubled. Sir, they mentioned your mother specifically. Something about her grave. Hyun-woo went very still. My mother died 20 years ago. What could her grave possibly? Permission to investigate, sir? June asked. I'd like to look into your mother's background more thoroughly. There might be something we missed. Do it, Hyun-woo said, but Zara felt the tension radiating from him. His mother was a wound that had never fully healed, a loss he rarely spoke about. Whatever secrets she'd taken to her grave, he wasn't sure he wanted them uncovered. That night, Zara found Hyun-woo standing at the window of Ji-woo's nursery, watching their daughter sleep in her crib. She was finally home from the NICU, still small but thriving, her angry little personality blooming more every day. He looked like a man carrying the weight of worlds. Talk to me, Zara said softly, sliding her arms around his waist from behind, careful of his healing injuries. What's wrong? My mother, he said quietly. I was 12 when she died. Car accident, they said. Quick. Painless. My father never talked about her after. Just threw himself into the organization, into making me into his successor. He paused. I always wondered if there was more to it. If the accident was really an accident. But I was a child. What did I know? And now Dae Young and the Azakayo think her grave holds secrets that can destroy you. Zara finished. Secrets important enough to center their entire revenge strategy around. What if everything I know is a lie? The question came out raw, vulnerable. What if my father wasn't who I thought he was? What if my mother? He stopped, unable to finish. Then we deal with it together, Zara said firmly, turning him to face her. Whatever June finds, whatever secrets come out, we face them as a family. You, me, Tae Young, Ji-woo. That's what we do. We don't run from truth, no matter how ugly. We face it, we survive it, and we come out stronger. That's who we are. Hyun-woo pulled her close, burying his face in her hair, breathing her in like she was oxygen. I don't deserve you. I trapped you in this life, forced you into a marriage you never asked for, dragged you into a world that's tried to kill you repeatedly. You gave me a family, Zara interrupted, pulling back to cup his face in her hands. You gave me Tae Young, who I love like he came from my own body. You gave me Ji-woo, who exists because you loved me enough to make me believe in futures again. You gave me purpose beyond survival. So don't you dare apologize for the best thing that ever happened to me, even if it started with bullets and blood. He kissed her then, deep and desperate, a reminder that they were alive, together, still fighting. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. We should do it soon. The wedding. The real one. Before anything else goes wrong. That's very romantic, Zara said dryly. Marry me before the next assassination attempt. Every girl's dream proposal. I'm serious, Hyun-woo said, and his eyes held that intensity that meant he'd made up his mind, and arguing was pointless. I want to marry you while we're both conscious. I want Tae Young to walk you down the aisle. I want Ji-woo there, even if she's too young to remember. I want our family and the people who matter to witness that I choose you, every day, for the rest of my life. No more waiting for the perfect moment. This is the moment. Bloody and imperfect, and ours. Okay, Zara said, her heart full to breaking. Let's get married. Again. Properly this time. The wedding was planned for 3 weeks later, a small ceremony in the mansion gardens that had been rebuilt after the attack. Zara wore the fusion dress with her mother's osso oak fabric woven into the design, gold threads catching sunlight. Amina stood as her maid of honor, having decided to stay in Seoul permanently, attending university and building a life in this strange new world her sister had claimed. Tae Young, true to his word, walked Zara down the makeshift aisle with such seriousness that several guests teared up. He wore a traditional Korean hanbok in black silk, looking so much like his father it made Zara's breath catch. At the altar, Hyunwoo waited in his own hanbok, his cane resting against a chair because his pride refused to let him lean on it during the ceremony. Ji-woo, now 2 months old and determined to be involved despite being too young to understand anything, was held by Mrs. Choi in the front row. She made indignant noises throughout the ceremony, her tiny voice a counterpoint to the traditional Korean music and Nigerian drums that played simultaneously. The ceremony itself blended both cultures beautifully. They performed the Korean paebik, bowing to elders and receiving blessings. They jumped the broom in a nod to African diaspora traditions. They exchanged rings and vows in both Korean and English, their words a promise to each other and to the family they'd built from impossible circumstances. I, Hyunwoo Park, take you, Zara Okonkwo Park, to be my wife, he said, his voice steady but his eyes suspiciously bright. I promise to protect you, even when you don't think you need protecting. To love you, even when you're doing terrifying things like faking labor in hostage situations. To honor you, every single day, for the gift of your courage and your heart. You saved my son. You saved me. And I will spend the rest of my life being worthy of that salvation. I, Zara Okonkwo Park, take you, Hyunwoo Park, to be my husband, she said, tears streaming freely down her face. I promise to stand beside you, even when you're being impossibly stubborn. To love you, even when you're walking into warehouses full of armed men because you can't stand the thought of losing me. To honor you, every single day, for showing me that love doesn't have to start with flowers and poetry. Sometimes it starts with bullets and hospital beds, and becomes the most real thing I've ever known. When they kissed, sealing vows they'd technically already made months ago, but were finally consciously choosing, the applause was thunderous. Taeyoung cheered. Jiwoo wailed. Mrs. Choi sobbed into her handkerchief. Even June, standing at the back with his security team, looked suspiciously emotional. The reception was small and intimate, held in the mansion's dining room. Toasts were made, food was shared, Korean and Nigerian dishes side by side, and for a few hours, the world's dangers felt far away. Zara danced with Hyunwoo despite his leg, her head on his chest, his arms around her like a fortress. Happy, he murmured against her hair. Terrified, she admitted. But yes, happy. Good, he said. Because I have a wedding present for you. Well, for us. For our family. He led her to his study after the reception, where June waited with a folder of documents. The security chief's face was grave as he handed them over. Sir, Mrs. Park, I found what Daeyoung and the Azakai were looking for. And it's... June paused, clearly struggling with how to explain. It's complicated. Hyunwoo opened the folder, Zara reading over his shoulder. What they found made both of them go still with shock. The documents were old, some yellowed with age, others digitally scanned from police archives that should have been sealed forever. But the story they told was explosive. Hyunwoo's father, the legendary former boss of the Park organization, had been an undercover police officer. Commissioner Park, working deep cover for 20 years, building a criminal empire while funneling intelligence to a secret anti-corruption task force. That's impossible, Hyunwoo said, his voice hollow. My father was. He was born into this life. His father before him, and his father before that. We're legacy. Keep reading, sir, June said quietly. The next set of documents revealed the even bigger truth. Hyunwoo's mother hadn't died in a car accident. She'd been murdered by the very task force her husband worked for. Because she was the real power behind the Park organization. She'd been the crime boss, the strategist, the ruthless mind that built the empire. Her husband had been her puppet, her cover story, the face she showed the world while she pulled all the strings. When the task force realized Commissioner Park had gone native, fallen in love with his assignment, they'd eliminated her to try to bring him back. Instead, they'd created the monster he became. A cop who turned criminal for real, who took over his dead wife's empire and ran it with grief-fueled vengeance for 2 decades. My mother, Hyunwoo whispered, staring at a photograph in the file. She'd been beautiful, elegant, with eyes that held the same calculating intelligence Hyunwoo had inherited. My mother was the real Park boss. Everything I thought I knew was a lie, Zara finished softly, her hand finding his. Your father lied to protect you. To protect the organization. To keep you safe from the truth. But why? Hyunwoo looked at June desperately. Why hide this? Why not just tell me? Because, sir, there's more. June pulled out another document, this one recent. Someone leaked this information to the media. It's going to break in 48 hours. Every news outlet in Korea will run the story. The Park organization was founded by a woman, run by a woman, and the man everyone feared was actually a police officer who went rogue. Your legitimacy, your claim to leadership, your entire legacy. It's all about to be questioned by every family in the organization. The implications were staggering. If the 5 families learned that Hyunwoo's father had been a cop, even a dirty one, trust would shatter. Police informant blood was poison in their world. And if they learned his mother had been the real power, Some of the more traditional families would rebel at the idea of following a woman's heir. Dae-young, Hyun-woo said, understanding flooding his expression. He found this somehow. He's going to use it to destroy me. Not with bullets, with truth. He's going to turn the entire organization against me by revealing I'm the son of a cop and a crime boss. And the crime boss was my mother. That's his revenge, Zara said, her mind racing through the implications. He doesn't need to kill you. He just needs to delegitimize you. To make the families question whether they should follow you. And in the chaos, he reclaims his father's territory and rebuilds the Baek Empire. We could suppress it, June suggested. Kill the story, eliminate the journalists, make the evidence disappear. No, Hyun-woo said firmly. That's exactly what they'd expect. We'd look guilty, desperate. It would confirm every suspicion. He was thinking now, his strategic mind engaging despite the emotional bombshell. We get ahead of it. We control the narrative. How? Zara asked. Hyun-woo looked at her, and slowly a smile spread across his face. Not happy, but determined. We tell the truth. All of it. We call an emergency meeting of all 5 families. We present the evidence ourselves. And we use it. Use it how? June looked confused. My mother built this empire from nothing. She was brilliant, ruthless, and powerful enough that even the police couldn't bring her down. They had to murder her. That's not a weakness. That's legendary. Hyun-woo's voice grew stronger. And my father loved her enough to abandon everything. His career, his principles, his honor, to avenge her and protect what she built. That's not betrayal. That's the ultimate loyalty. Zara saw where he was going, her own mind clicking into place. You're not the son of a traitor. You're the heir to a queen. And your father's sin wasn't being a cop. It was loving your mother so much he became everything he'd sworn to destroy just to keep her legacy alive. Exactly, Hyun-woo said. We reframe it. My mother was the true winter dragon. I'm just following in her footsteps. And anyone who has a problem with that can challenge me directly. But they'll have to acknowledge that if they're following me, they're following a legacy built by the most brilliant strategist our world has ever seen, who just happened to be a woman. It's risky, June warned. Some of the families won't accept it. Elder Kwon will use it as ammunition. Let him try, Hyun-woo said, his hand tightening on Zara's. I'm done playing by their rules. I'm done pretending that strength only looks one way. My wife took 4 bullets and survived. My mother built an empire the police couldn't touch. The women in my life are the strongest people I know. Anyone who thinks that makes me weak can step forward and test that theory personally. The emergency council meeting was called for the following evening. Every family head, every lieutenant, every person of importance in the organization gathered in the massive private ballroom that served as their assembly hall. The room hummed with speculation and tension. Everyone knew something explosive was coming, but no one knew what. Hyun-woo stood at the head of the room, Zara beside him in a position that made several of the traditional members mutter with disapproval. He waited until the room fell completely silent before speaking. Gentlemen, he said, his voice carrying to every corner. I've called you here because in 48 hours, a story is breaking that will change how you see me, my family, and this organization. Rather than let you hear it from enemies or journalists, I'm going to tell you myself. The complete truth, no matter how it makes me look. He nodded to June, who began distributing copies of the documents to each family head. Hyun-woo waited while they read, watching their expressions shift from curiosity to shock to calculation. Elder Kwon's face went through a particular journey, surprise, then triumph, then uncertainty as he realized there might be more to this revelation than simple scandal. My father, Hyun-woo said into the growing murmurs, was Commissioner Park of the Seoul Metropolitan Police. He went deep undercover to infiltrate organized crime. That much is true. But what the police didn't know, what even I didn't know until now, was that he fell in love with his assignment. Not the criminal life. The woman who ran it. My mother. He pulled up a photograph on the large screen behind him. His mother in her prime, beautiful and fierce, standing in what was clearly this very room decades ago, surrounded by men who looked at her with respect and fear. Park Min-ji was the true head of this organization. She built it from the fragments of 3 failing families, unified them through strategy and strength, and made us what we are today. My father was her cover story, her public face, the man she showed the world while she made every real decision. When the police realized he'd gone native, when they understood he was no longer their agent but her partner, they murdered her. Made it look like an accident. Tried to bring him back in line. The room was absolutely silent now, everyone hanging on his words. Instead, they created something worse. They created a man with nothing left to lose. My father took over the organization his wife had built, and he ran it for 20 years in her name. Every decision he made, every move he calculated, was in service to her legacy. He was a cop who became a criminal not out of corruption, but out of love. And when he died, he left that legacy to me, not knowing I didn't have the full story. Hyun-woo paused, letting it sink in, then continued. Now Dae-young Baek has leaked this information to destroy my legitimacy. To make you question whether you should follow the son of a police informant. To use my parents' story as a weapon against me. So I'm going to give you a choice right now, tonight, before those stories break. You can see this as a scandal, as a stain on our organization's honor. Or you can see it as what it really is, proof that the Park family's loyalty is absolute. That we keep our promises even beyond death. That will burn down the world for the people we love. He gestured to Zara, pulling her forward slightly. My wife took 4 bullets for my son. I married her to protect her. And in doing so, I found what my father found, someone worth abandoning every rule for. Someone worth rebuilding an empire to protect. So yes, my mother was the real power. Yes, my father was a cop who turned criminal. And yes, I'm exactly like both of them. I'm my mother's strategist and my father's protector. And anyone who thinks that heritage makes me weak is welcome to test that theory. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Then, unexpectedly, Mr. Yoon from the Eastern Ports stood and bowed. A deep, respectful bow. Your mother was legendary. My father spoke of her with awe. If you carry her blood and her mind, then I'm proud to follow you. Another head stood, then another. Not all of them. Elder Kwan remained seated, his face thunderous, but enough. More than half the room rising in support, acknowledging the strength in his parents' story rather than the scandal. Those who wish to leave, Hyun-woo said quietly, may do so now with no repercussions. I'm not interested in forcing loyalty. But know this, if you stand with me, I will protect this organization and everyone in it with the same devotion my father showed my mother. The same devotion my wife shows our family. We are Parks. We don't abandon our own. Ever. Elder Kwan stood slowly, and for a moment everyone thought he might challenge. Instead, he bowed, stiffly, reluctantly, but a bow nonetheless. Your mother would be proud, he said grudgingly. Though she'd probably have handled this whole thing more elegantly. Probably, Hyun-woo agreed with a slight smile. But I'm working with what I inherited from my father too. A tendency toward the dramatic and a weakness for strong women who make terrible decisions to protect the people they love. The meeting dissolved into smaller conversations, alliances being confirmed, loyalties being tested. But the organization held. The revelation that could have destroyed them had instead reinforced the very thing that made them strong. Family, loyalty, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for the people who mattered. Later that night, after Ji-woo was asleep and Tae-young was tucked in, Zara found Hyun-woo standing at his mother's portrait in his private study. It had always been there, but he'd rarely looked at it. Now he studied her face with new understanding, seeing the intelligence and strength he'd inherited, the legacy he carried. She would have liked you, he said when Zara slipped her arms around him from behind. My mother. She would have seen herself in you. Someone who refuses to be underestimated, who uses being overlooked as a weapon. I wish I could have known her, Zara said softly. She sounds extraordinary. She was. And she was ruthless. And she was powerful. Hyun-woo turned in Zara's arms, pulling her close. Just like you. My father fell for his assignment. I fell for my housemate. I guess we Park men have a type. Women who are far more dangerous than they appear. And you Park men have a tendency to marry those women under extremely questionable circumstances, Zara teased. Your father married your mother while she was his criminal target. You married me while I was unconscious. Not exactly romance novel material. Best love stories never are, Hyun-woo murmured, kissing her softly. They're messy and complicated and start with all the wrong reasons. But they become the right reasons. They become everything. His phone buzzed then, shattering the moment. June's message was short and devastating. Dae-young Baek just made contact. He says the story was phase 1. Phase 2 starts now. He knows about your mother's grave. Says there's something buried with her that will destroy everything you think you know about your family. He's moving on the grave site tonight. Hyun-woo showed Zara the message, watching fear and determination war in her expression. It's a trap, she said immediately. He wants you to go there, wants to catch you vulnerable. Probably, Hyun-woo agreed. But if there's something buried with my mother, something else that could be used against us, I need to know. I need to control it before he does. Then we go together, Zara said firmly. No more splitting up. No more sacrificial plays. We face this as a team. You just had a baby 2 months ago. You should be home, safe, recovering. I'm going, Zara said in that tone that meant arguing was pointless. Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't do anything stupidly heroic. That's apparently my job in this relationship. Before Hyun-woo could respond, another message came through. This one from an unknown number, but the content made his blood run cold. Your mother kept secrets. Dangerous ones. Come to her grave alone at midnight, and I'll tell you the truth about who you really are. Bring anyone else, and I'll make sure those secrets destroy not just you, but your wife and children. Especially little Ji-woo. Such a fragile thing, premature babies. So many things can go wrong. Dae-young. He's threatening our daughter, Zara whispered, her face going pale. He's threatening Ji-woo. Hyun-woo's expression went absolutely cold, the winter dragon emerging fully. Then he's made his final mistake. Because you don't threaten a Park's children. You don't threaten my daughter. He looked at Zara, and his eyes held a promise of violence that was almost beautiful in its absolute certainty. Get June. Get everyone we trust. We're ending this. Tonight. Forever. If you've made it this far, you absolute legend, smash that like button with everything you've got. Drop a comment telling us. What do you think is buried with Hyunwoo's mother? What secret could be dangerous enough to destroy everything? And you better hit that subscribe button right now, because part 3 is going to blow your mind. We're talking secrets that rewrite everything. A final confrontation with Dae-young that will leave you breathless, and a revelation about Hyunwoo's family that changes the entire game. This story isn't over. It's just getting started. The cemetery was silent at midnight. Fog rolling between headstones like the ghosts of the dead were walking. Hyunwoo stood before his mother's elaborate grave marker, his cane abandoned because he refused to look weak for whatever was coming. Beside him, Zara was tense and alert, her hand near the small weapon June had insisted she carry. Around them, invisible in the darkness, June and 30 of their most trusted men waited for the signal. Dae-young emerged from the fog like a specter, alone but clearly confident. He looked rougher than when they'd last seen him, scarred from the warehouse fire, his expensive suit replaced with tactical gear, but his eyes burned with the same grief-fueled madness. You came, he said, sounding almost surprised. Both of you. I said alone. I don't take orders from dead men, Hyunwoo said coldly. And you're dead, Dae-young. You just don't know it yet. You threatened my daughter. That was your last mistake. Your daughter, Dae-young laughed, but it was hollow. That's what makes this so perfect, so poetic. He pulled out a weathered journal, its pages yellowed with age. I found this in your mother's safe deposit box. Took me months to track down, bribe the right people, get access. But it was worth it. Because this, he held up the journal. This is the truth your father buried with her. The truth that destroys everything. What truth? Zara demanded, her voice steady despite the fear. What could possibly? Your husband isn't who he thinks he is, Dae-young interrupted, his smile sharp and cruel. His mother kept detailed records. Confessions. Secrets. He opened the journal to a marked page, began reading in Korean. The boy doesn't know, can never know, but he's not Park blood. He's... Enough. Hyunwoo's roar echoed through the cemetery. Whatever you think you know. I know that you're not your father's son, Dae-young said softly, viciously. I know that your mother had an affair. I know that the great Park dynasty, the legacy you've been protecting, the empire you've been defending, it's not even yours. You're the bastard child of a woman who cuckolded an undercover cop and then got herself killed for it. The words hung in the fog-thick air, devastating and final. And as they stood there, Hyunwoo and Zara frozen in shock, Dae-young triumphant, the truth of a 20-year-old secret finally emerging, the first shots rang out. But not at them. At Dae-young. And the shooter wasn't June or any of Hyunwoo's men. The shooter was someone they'd never expected. Someone who'd been dead for 20 years. If your jaw just hit the floor, smash that like button. Comment right now. Who do you think just shot Dae-young? And if you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Part 3 drops soon, and trust me, you do not want to miss the identity of that shooter and the secret that will shatter everything Hyunwoo thought he knew about his family. This story isn't over. It's about to get nuclear. Subscribe now and have a blast.